welcome to the Early Years Insight with me, Kathy Leatherbarrow from Eden. And today we've got Alan Kennedy, our great trainer and everything, and everything neuroscience related. And we have got Louise Scott from Shining Stars Nursery. Welcome.
Hi. Hello.
And today we're going to discuss behaviour.
Big topic.
Big topic.
It is.
Big topic.
Yes.
And how we can influence behaviour.
Yeah.
I feel that people are seeing more behaviour than they have done. It's becoming more prominent and more of a topic to discuss with practitioners.
My role is training coordinator for Shining Stars Nurseries in Halifax. So in terms of my role, behaviour and communication training is kind of what we do when young people or any staff come to join our nursery. Apprentices that I manage, we teach them sort of the basics of what communication looks like in young children from sort of birth up to 5 years. We break it down and I teach them that because I feel that behaviour is something that you learn at sort of after you've learned how children communicate. And I do think that without the knowledge of communication and how children verbalise words, put words together, you need to understand that before you bring in the behaviour, the teachings of behaviour and how children are. Because you may have non-verbal children in terms of behaviour, and so it's important that they get a good grounding of knowing how we communicate from the onset with children, so they can identify. Because
then you can help to understand a child's learning pathway as well,
Definitely.
can't you?
Yeah.
And there's lots of influences that can affect behaviour, isn't there, Alan?
Yes, absolutely. There are many, many influences as we go through life. And we start to learn as soon as we are born. It's very slow at first. You know, the new child's brain can only operate, the frequency of brainwaves is like 1 to 4 hertz. It's very, very slow. There's nothing much going on. But I like to think of it as, we talk about education and training. I like to think of it as whatever we tell a child, it becomes a program in their mind. And it can be a positive one, or it can be a negative one, or it can be somewhere in between. And as the child grows, they learn from many different sources. So they learn from each other, so social learning. They learn a lot from parents and siblings. And then as they grow and develop relationships, they start to learn from their friends. And we're noticing now that, obviously children are learning a lot from television media, social media. And in the road safety world, would you believe we now accept that children as young as 18 months old are learning driver attitudes and behaviour?
Really?
Wow.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's funny you say that, because I can remember having my nephew in the car as a young toddler, and we thought it was one of his skills, his party tricks. If we said, right, we're going to go and see Nana, he'd tell us at 2 and 3 the roads that we needed to take to go to Nana's, and he knew. So, it's it's like no, and he'd know if we were going the wrong way. So this isn't Nana's.
So his subconscious mind has developed a map, a mind map. It's just like that. And he can follow it, no problem. So children take everything in, they absorb everything. You hear people say, oh, children, their minds are like sponges. That's absolutely true. And because it's not until about the age of 8 that they develop a critical mind, when the conscious mind emerges, then they start going, oh, wait a minute, that's not right.
Questioning.
Yeah, I don't believe that anymore. But before then, whatever they see here, it goes in and it's recorded as new programs, whether it's true or false. So when they're in the car, for example, whatever they see going on in the front, that's what they're learning, whether that driver's a good one or a bad one. But there are other influences, around health, not just road safety, although that's my area of expertise.
Yep.
They learn about food habits. They learn about other behavioural things. But food is a massive thing. We can influence children to be so unhealthy.
Very.
But
But
obviously,
also, and I think as well, parents are trying so hard, aren't they? With food, especially at the moment. But it's merging. That even when they think they are picking all these healthy options, the amount of added sugar that's in these is beyond a child's recommended daily allowance.
Definitely. Just to point out, when I was a family support worker, quite a few years ago, we actually did courses around emotional well-being for parents and taught them like healthy options versus unhealthy options, but looking at like the sugar intake for things like carbonated pop, picking, what I learned from it is, your Volvic flavoured water. So that has got as many if not as many teaspoons as Coke. So I learned that like a can of Coke had 27 teaspoons of sugar in there. So I've always it's drinks that I learned a lot of things through drinks now that just makes me either drink water or tea, really. Tea's not great, but there's the marketing with we learnt about the traffic lights. So I try and educate my children around that. So there is a lot of knowledge out there, but I think with the cost of living and everything, is it that parents pick the unhealthy choices because of the cost of living and the prices of things? Because I know I've been guilty of doing that before. Busy lives, we work full time. There's a lot of people that are, I believe that parents nowadays, if they're in work, their lives are
Yeah, let's make it easy.
And it's really difficult in terms of, I would love to provide a healthy meal for my children every single day, but if I'm going to sit here right now and say I do, I'd be a total liar because I just can't.
But it can have such an influence
about being real
on their behaviour.
Definitely.
Can't it?
So I think it's about having a balance and knowing that the society say we've got to be super healthy and we've got to do so much exercise and we've got to eat this and eat that. Realistically, I don't think that all the time. I think if we aim and work towards that, then fantastic. But I do think life is very time consuming. If you've got a job, you're literally 9-5, come home, have tea, sort the kids out, do story time, and there's these expectations of parents. I'm a parent of twin boys, they're 11-year-old, and my life is probably described as my friends and family would say, you just never stop. It's absolutely chaotic. We don't know how you get through the day. And it is. And I'm sure there's many parents out there that feel exactly the same in terms of the chaoticness of when you do have children and you're trying to hold down job and trying to be the perfect wife, the perfect mother, the perfect... And there's no perfect. Parents
that all
aren't
impacts on behaviour, doesn't it?
All impacts on behaviour. My twins, I've got a little boy. One of my twins is getting assessed for they think he might have autism, and I kind of, having the experience as a practitioner and being in childcare 20 years and being a mum to 11-year-old, I've always been, well, I'm not sure. My professionalism says that I can see some traits, but then is society perceiving that, nowadays it's all about, we think children behave in a certain way, so automatically they've got autism or they've got ADHD.
Doesn't quite fit the box.
That child doesn't quite fit the box, so we have to put a label on them. So I've always been sort of still very supportive towards my child. Obviously, I notice that he's got certain individuality and different needs and things, but I'm a lot more in terms of, let's just see how he goes, because in terms of his social skills, he could be behind because he was premature. His brain development, like you say, he was born 35 weeks. So in that terms, there's always been a delay there. And in terms of personal, social, emotional skills, he has got a delay. But it's recognising, is that just brain development and delay? Let's just see how he goes. Let's not put a label on him and then it affect his behaviour. Because I feel my child, if there was a label on him, that would affect his behaviour more in terms of emotional needs and how he displays himself. And so I think there's a lot of pressures on what is brain development in terms of, is it to do with the maturity of the brain, or is it genuinely to do with behaviour? Has that child got a specific need, SEN need? And I think it gets distorted, that. And I think that we automatically, I don't know if it's a lack of education with professionals sometimes, just automatically thinking, right, we've got all this SEN children we think we have, when really, do we need to strip it back and look at the individual child and work it out?
I think we have to take a holistic approach to it all. So, like you say, that seems to be like a one-track approach. And we need to look at all avenues. And, you know, we mentioned soft drinks before. And we need to talk about food and what are the children digesting, you know, because that can have a massive impact as well. We talk about certain drinks with sugar in. Oh, well, we won't buy that now. We'll buy the diet one. Yet the diet one is actually worse than the sugar one because of certain chemicals that are in those drinks. Some people pronounce it aspartame, however it's called.
We all know which one you mean.
We all know which one. But it comes under other names as well, so they hide it under something else. But those kind of drugs, and I call them drugs, in these drinks are lethal, and they can cause lots of not just physical health problems, but cognitive problems as well. And, you know, I've heard many cases of where adults who've been... one example is a friend of a friend who, she was in a wheelchair. She'd been gradually getting worse and worse over 2 years to the point where she was in a wheelchair. She couldn't walk anymore, and she was putting weight on. Doctors put it down to ME. And then another friend who was had the knowledge said to her, so what do you eat, what do you drink? And went through that. And it turned out that she drank a litre bottle of soda water every day.
Right.
And it was full of the nasty drugs. So she convinced her to just try that, just stop that. And that's what she did. And she looked at all the food labels, make sure there was none of the nasty things in. 6-8 months later, she was out the wheelchair.
Wow.
You know, and on the road to full health again. It was simply because of what she was drinking and eating as well. So we need to look at children's diets. We need to look at how we actually...
But it's not just their diet, though, is it? It's about how we present food.
How we present it.
How we discuss food.
Absolutely.
And how we educate children. And you know, there's lots and lots of different avenues when it comes to food, isn't there? It's not just about being healthy.
Well, look at when we go back to birth again, and the child only has the programs in its mind that it needs to survive. One of the programs is to eat when you're full and stop. Sorry, eat when you're hungry and stop when you're full. So these are programs. So when the child cries, it's hungry. And then when we feed it in whatever way we do, and when the baby turns its head away from the food source, that's the program saying you've had enough to be healthy.
They're already giving those signals.
That's right. And what we do as adults, parents, we reprogram them to eat 3 meals a day, to eat everything, you know, so... Eat all of your dinner and you'll be a big boy or a big girl. And what happens there is we're starting to install these new programs that it's good to be big. So therefore the subconscious mind starts looking for opportunities to be big. It might even turn it round and say, this is too much, and stop the child eating altogether. Things like, you know, you've got to clean your plate before you go out and play. Oh, so I've got to eat everything to enjoy myself. These are programs going in. These are influences.
How many times do you hear, eat all your dinner and you'll grow up to be big and strong?
Yeah,
definitely.
That's right. Exactly.
That was what I was always told. And I was, like you say, with the programming of the meals, that was how I was brought up, you know, because my mum was brought up like that. My mum and dad, if
we all were.
you've got to eat all of your tea before
Yeah.
you get a pudding type thing. So I think that's influenced my generation, and obviously before that, and it's kind of learnt behaviours, and
It
it's
is,
breaking
And
them learnt
if
behaviours.
you think of how many times a child is presented with food in a day, you know, an early years child more than likely will get something to eat in the car on the way to nursery because they wake up hungry the majority of the time.
Yeah.
If they're there early enough, they'll get breakfast at nursery. Then there'll be a mid-morning snack. Then there'll be lunch. Then there'll be an afternoon snack. Then there's tea or high tea. Then they'll go home possibly and have an evening meal. And if they're really lucky, supper.
Yeah,
So
there's a lot of opportunities there to eat, isn't
eight
there?
opportunities
And
to
how many
feed
of
your
those
child.
opportunities have
You know,
got the
and-
wrong things in it? I don't know.
But also,
I believe that nurseries are obviously going with the guidelines. They have to follow the
course,
Ofsted
of
early
course,
years
yeah.
foundation stage guidelines in terms of when we're setting our policies for food,
but it doesn't
and
designate
things like
how
that.
often
Yeah.
children should eat. But and-
Definitely.
and then it comes down to the knowledge of the practitioner, doesn't it? Is it important that the child eats at each of those opportunities, or do they get the opportunity to? No, I'm not
Yeah,
ready for
I'm not
food.
ready, yeah.
I'd rather
nursery-
I'd rather a nap, or I'd rather to carry on playing. And it's about educating and empowering those practitioners that maybe it's okay that they don't eat at every opportunity that's presented to them, or equally it's okay to graze
Yep.
at each of those opportunities. But then you've got the flip side of that is on oral hygiene. Is that a dentist or a hygienist would say that a much sugar attack on your food at all those opportunities throughout the day is not good for their oral hygiene. So it can be very
I don't know if you're aware,
overload.
but
can't it?
dentists nowadays, I took my twins to the dentist not long ago, and there is a qualified practitioner that looks at the teeth after you've had the children have had the dentist appointment to give you sort of up-to-date advice, show you how to properly brush.
Most dentists have hygienists now at regular slots through their appointments with the dentist, don't they, for children?
But
For
showing
that,
children how to brush,
for
they
that
don't, not your
purpose.
typical with your toothbrush, you're doing one tooth at a time. And I don't believe that every parent and every person knows that, has that knowledge of how to brush the teeth properly, how to encourage children to be shown how to brush the teeth properly.
There's a lovely little psychological trick we can use with children as well when they won't brush their teeth. We simply say to them, you only have to brush the ones you want to keep. And sometimes children go, oh, right, yeah, I'll brush them all in.
Hey, but if they like the tooth fairy, maybe that's a deterrent as well.
Yeah, well, that's going back to, very young children where they have no conscious mind yet. The subconscious mind can't tell the difference between pretend and real. So it believes in the tooth fairy and Father Christmas and everything. So when we tell them things, they fully believe it. So, when we say things to them like, if you don't behave yourself, the policeman will come and take you away. My parents used to say that. But some children may then start to believe that they're actually capable of doing bad things.
Yeah.
Oh, well, maybe I'll just do bad things.
Because of the words they're hearing
Because
and
of
the
the
influential
words, yeah.
adults in their lives.
Yeah. And
What they're
that's the
saying.
same thing with the food. Eat all of your dinner and you'll be big. The subconscious mind only records the bit you will be big.
I mean, my twins are 11. I keep going back to my children, but this is. I don't know. When it comes to my twins, they were born identical. Obviously, they're identical, but they have the same diet, but they are completely different body shapes, and there's like a stone and a half between them. I think for my twins, because they're so close and they have this really beautiful relationship, bonding, should we say, they compare each other. So Joseph, the more slender twin, will look at Lewis and say, I want to be more big and strong like Lewis. And then Lewis will say, I don't have a flat stomach like Joe. And they're constantly comparing each other. So I think that can be quite difficult sometimes.
Maybe they need to meet in the middle then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think they've both got
Yeah.
sort of their own opinions on body shape. But I do believe that society and social media and, you know, beauty in the world that has gone through the roof with certain how young people are
Yeah.
sort of changing features of their
Yeah.
faces and things like that. I think
Their expectations.
it's big on the agenda, isn't it? It's a
Very
big
much so.
topic. It's this is what they're seeing visually. This is what children and young people are seeing, not just hearing, but they're actually seeing it in magazines, on YouTube, on TikTok, of what the perfect
and
person should look
and
like.
all of
type
this
thing.
becomes real for them in their subconscious minds. This is how the world is,
Yeah.
because they're not at an age yet where they can actually make their mind up themselves. I don't want to be like this. There's another thing around them wanting to be part of the bigger group as well. So, you know, they all want to wear the same shoes or wear the same clothes and buy girls buying the same accessories. Everybody wants to look the same, and that can work in our favour as parents and carers who need to monitor and amend behaviour, etc. So if we've got a child in a group, a class that is not behaving, we've got to set them up with a situation that makes them feel they want to be like everybody else. So we just simply say something like, you know, most children of your age wouldn't do that. And psychologically, that's a nice little trigger for them to go, oh, well, maybe I should be like everybody else. Because that's how we are built. We want to be part of the team. We want to join the Brownies. We want to join the Scouts. We want to be on the football team. So if my behaviour is actually different to them, maybe I should change. That's a nice little tool that we can use. I'm not saying it works every time, but, you know, if we use it quite a few times on the same child, and if we add to that, more sensible children of your age wouldn't do that kind of thing, wouldn't behave like that, and just leave it, you know.
I've always taught, my mum and dad probably wouldn't agree with this because they've always sort of brought me up to be quite, you're seen and you're not heard, you know, that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah,
that kind of old-fashioned
Yeah.
view. But I actually did a degree. My degree was all focused around the voice of the child.
Excellent.
And it was sort of going through history about what it was like in Victorian times to what it's like present day. And we are very much so listening to the individual child, aren't we? It's all about the voice of the child.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think we've gone so much so to letting children have choices, being independent, being kind, teaching them sort of to stand up for themselves, that actually we're losing that kind of boundaries
But
and
also,
what we should
children
teach.
really developmentally aren't prepared for
Yeah.
some of those
Yes.
decision makings to be on themselves either, though, are they?
No.
Children, we need to let children be children
Yeah.
I think
and mature naturally.
my mum, with
but
the
we're forcing it.
twins growing up,
Yeah.
my mum always used to point out and say, Louise, you're giving the boys far too much choice. It's far too, you should say this or this, not like have a big discussion about it. But I suppose the influence of how strict my parents were, because they were very strict, I wanted that I kind of geared
You
towards
rebelled.
well, yeah, I was a rebellious teenager, I think, or a nightmare for mum and dad, but I wanted to be that parent that did give more of a choice. But then in the past, like you say with behaviour, it hasn't always worked out for the best in terms of, I have struggled in terms of behaviour with my own, even though, I mean, my husband used to say to me, you have all this knowledge and expertise in child development, but you're not doing that at home. You're doing the opposite.
It's so much more difficult with your own, though, isn't it?
He goes, why don't just practice what you preach? And I'm
But
like,
you're emotionally attached.
yeah,
and
I couldn't. Sometimes I found it really difficult to use what I knew and do what I thought was the right thing professionally, and just almost textbook. But then as a parent, I just went out the window because I was either tired, I hate to say this, but couldn't be bothered because of,
Because you're tired, yeah.
because you're so tired, you're just about getting through the day.
Yeah.
So some decisions looking back, and even now, I think no one's the perfect parent, but they'll parent in their own way, and they'll parent through lots of different factors, like you say, through obviously environmental factors, how they were brought up, influential people. There's lots of different reasons why parents
do those things.
Things they think.
Everybody's got a different level of priority for their different morals, haven't they? And what's important to every
One
family
parent.
differs, doesn't
Definitely.
it?
Definitely.
It may well be that some parents, it's all about you've got to do well at school. You've got to education is key.
Yeah, and that's a big one.
It is massive. It's huge. But then you've got some parents that they would much rather a polite, well-mannered, happy, well-rounded child. And if you just do your best at school, that's all right. But happiness is key. And neither one is right nor wrong.
Yeah.
My two daughters didn't want to go to college or university. I mean, at a very, 15 and 13, like I did, they went and did a summer job down at the fairground, down the seafront, like just handing, change out. But at a very early age, my youngest daughter, she was looking after the chip shop and things like that. And the two of them wanted to run their own business. And they wanted to buy one of these big hamburger vans and, tour to different events and hopefully make a lot of money. That never happened.
Get around the country as well.
That never happened. But my youngest daughter met her partner, Tony, who was a shopkeeper about 17 years ago. And they've now got 3 shops, very close to each other. My oldest daughter manages one of the shops. And the turnover, I'll not tell you what the turnover is, but it's very, very good. And they've got what they want and they're happy. They don't need to go to uni and have all this pressure and debt. And I'm a firm believer in that. Do what you feel is right for. You've got to support them and encourage them. But if you get a sense that that's not what they want, don't go there.
It's not important.
Don't go there because it's not important. What is a good job?
Exactly.
It's very subjective, isn't it?
I think with the budget that came out and the increase in the university fees, it definitely has put a burden on families that might want to, take their career to the next level or, have them opportunities. I don't feel that they can. As many families will be able to do that, which is really upsetting, really, to see, because
elitism.
it's about giving opportunities for as many people as you can, especially with the shortages in early years and staffing crisis and things. It just narrows it down even more, doesn't it? Is the type of kind of learners we're getting through, and some people are wanting to do degrees and move on, and there's not them opportunities.
Absolutely right. If that's what people want to do, encourage it. But I don't think we should be.
I don't think it's
children.
no. I definitely think it should be a choice in terms of. There's a lot of emphasis now on the English and maths, isn't there, across the sector in terms of job roles. I know that recent changes in the early years have said that you can no longer become a nursery manager for the first time unless you've got your maths. Whereas before it wasn't a necessity to have that. It was, everybody. It was ideal to have maths because obviously it's very important. But now it's been made compulsory for nursery managers to have maths, and I think across the different sectors they're bringing it in, aren't they? With you have to have English and maths to do this kind of role.
My eldest is at college, and you can't. Nobody at the college that she's gone to could enrol on a level 3 or an A level without both their maths and their English. They wouldn't even let them enrol on it and do a resit. You had to resit first or do a lower qualification.
Go back to when I left.
Maths can be a really difficult subject. I mean, I've always struggled with maths. I have never liked the subject, or I'm very poor in that sense. It's just not my strong point. You might need to give me some hypnotherapy.
I wish.
But my expectations, even now at 41, my mum's giving me a hard time, like saying, Louise, you should have done your maths. You know, if you do your maths, you could like open so much more doors and opportunities. And I'm like, yeah, but Mum, I've got my level 6 BA honours in children, young people and families. That's my qualification, and I've managed to get there. Okay, I didn't do it straight away. I ended up going to university at 25. I got actually later on in life, when it was free, by the way, and I don't have a load of debt.
Yeah.
But even now, there's certain, even with 20 years experience, there's certain roles and careers which I couldn't do because I haven't got my maths. I couldn't go and be a nursery manager anymore, not that I want to, but, you know, there's those kind of roles that I won't be able to do.
I've got my maths, and as with a daughter that's just taken her GCSE maths and one who's about to take her GCSE maths, I don't think I'd pass it now.
No. But I definitely wouldn't.
I'm very glad I've got it under my belt. But
like you said before when we were talking earlier, you said it's a mindset. And I think there's probably a mental block that I'm absolutely frightened to death of maths. So that's probably why I don't want to step foot into having to have any sessions to do with that subject.
I mean, when I was at school, when I left school, and I have to say, 54 years ago I left school, and gosh, makes us feel ancient.
you know,
and I was offered 3 apprenticeships, and there was loads of jobs then. So I had 2 apprenticeships in a shipyard and 1 down a coal mine.
Wow.
And you know what? My dad was cock-a-hoop about that, and my mother wasn't, and I wasn't either. I just followed the flock, did what everybody else did, and I refused all 3 apprenticeships. And I messed around for 2 years. Then I went to work in the oil rigs for the next 14 years.
Wow.
And then my formal education didn't start till I was 32.
Right.
And that's when I started to when I got into local government and started doing road safety work, and I wanted to get up the ladder and get promoted, etc. That's when I went back to school and really learned, you know, things that I needed to know to be successful. And maths and English, I was reasonable I was good at English, but reasonable at maths. But I found later in life I was much better at maths. I'm much better at it now.
Yeah. It's like you say with the sort of you re-educated when you were older. I did exactly the same in terms of, I think before the age of 25, in terms of my mindset and sort of if we're thinking about brain development. Yeah. I wasn't ready. I was quite a young sort of in my 20s. I was very I wasn't ready for it.
It's worth talking about mindset because you know, we were talking earlier about food, and we were talking about, you know, you've got to do well at school. The do well at school thing is a real issue that I have. So, you know, if we keep saying to children, if you don't get good grades at school, you'll never get a good job. You know, that's the kind of phrase that most teachers say, most parents will probably admit to saying, thinking that is the way to get a child to learn and to work harder. But actually, what happens is the subconscious mind just says, don't worry, I'll deal with this. It doesn't really say that, but that's how it works. And the child then rejects all those messages. But if we change it to when you work hard, you will get a good job. And we keep repeating that. That's helping them to manifest a positive mindset. And the critics will say, yeah, but what if I don't get a good job? But what is a good job? You know, you might think your job's great. I might not think it's good at all.
Yeah,
but
so it's different.
It's empowering their
learning. It empowers them to then
learn.
Subconsciously, you know, we talk about automatic programs. Like we learn to walk, we learn to drive a car, etc. They're all automatic. So we can put automatic beliefs in there as well, and attitudes. And the subconscious mind will automatically look for the opportunities to do well. And that is really, that's a key thing, I think, in behaviour, in future attitudes and performance and all those things, by helping children to believe that they can do it.
Yeah.
they'll have a much better chance of actually achieving.
Yeah.
But if we keep saying, oh, you can't do that, you'll never do that, what happens? They'll never do it.
No.
I think I've developed some behaviour training at Shining Stars Nursery, and the concept of it is basically to get the message over to practitioners that to instill the positive praise.
Yeah.
And not to focus on negative. So
Yeah.
take the negative out. In terms of when we go back to behaviour in young children, you know, you've got your anger, you've got your frustration, you've got your sad, happy, all of these different emotions. We need to be teaching children that they're all okay to have.
Well, they need to recognise
They need
them,
to, it's
don't they?
building the recognition
Yeah.
and not going, oh, well, if you're angry, it means it's negative. It's in the red. Because I know that some schools do this. They do the traffic light system where you've got your green, or you're happy, you're excited, and then you've got your red, you know, you're going into amber now, it's bad, oh, you're angry now, so that's red, And I don't believe that's...
No.
I do not believe that is helpful for the child. I mean, Louise did get... My twin got taught this in school, but when we had a chat understanding about it, I said the traffic light system is good to regulate your emotions and to understand how you're feeling and where you're at. However, don't think of the colours as it's a bad emotion, because at the end of the day, if you're feeling angry or you're feeling frustrated, that is normal. So we need to normalise emotions. We need to make the child understand that when they're experiencing different emotions, that's okay and that's acceptable, and
they need to be able to recognise their emotion, don't
And
they?
help them to deal with them.
And then be able to deal
knowing
with
how
them.
to
How
deal with them with each individual child, because each individual child we work with, and this is what I've put through my training, is to understand when that child's feeling those feelings and how to interact with that child at certain times. Is it certain times of the day? Is it something that's triggered them? Is it something within their routine that needs changing? So and working with the parents to get them on board with understanding what emotions are, because I think we think that children are born with understanding emotions, but they're not.
They're not.
They need to be taught it.
Everything.
And I think this is a common error.
Everything is learned from birth, after birth.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing in there. Really,
Nothing.
No.
in the brainstem, yes, there's primary programs, but there is nothing, and it's like fear of spiders. It's worrying about going to school. All these things are learned from somewhere else.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's people, it's adults and everybody who puts that
I
stuff
find it
in.
really hard, those spiders still in snakes, and I'm trying to not be, and I realise that my influential... So I kind of have to take myself off into a different room with that. I'm like, oh, Louise, please take this spider, and really I want to scream and cry. But I think it can be difficult for parents, especially if there's phobias or if they've got their own anxieties or worries, or they're going through bereavement, for instance, or anything that's sort of really strong emotions at that moment in time. Whatever. I think it can be difficult for parents at times, but
And they're busy as well, and it seems like a task to take, isn't it?
it's a big job.
Yeah.
It's probably one of the most hardest jobs.
Yes.
Well, if it is the hardest job I've ever
Parenting
done.
is so hard.
And I thought that I would be like, what's the word? Because I was a nanny for 7 years for 5 sets of twins through different families. I thought, I'll be an expert with when I have my own, kind of. But then when I actually fell pregnant with my own twins, I realised that it was a completely different story altogether.
Yeah.
I think just being a parent and a nursery practitioner are two completely different
things.
My cousin once turned round and said, now you've got children, you won't be giving me such a hard time about her little girl who were having a dummy still at 2, and I was kind of saying, by 2, by 2, they needed to, not have a dummy, and they were going to do this to the teeth, and kind of doing sort of textbook stuff and teaching her. And then when mine still had a dummy at that age, she was like, yours has still got a dummy for bedtime, you're not practicing what you preach, and so it's definitely I don't even know what I'm rambling on at now, but
Parenting and being a practitioner
it's definitely
are two completely different roles, aren't they?
it is, and it's a hard job.
Very.
All parents out there, I feel for you.
Right, well, thank you for coming and having a nice chat with us today. Hope to see you both again
Thank
soon.
you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.